laptops,
Jefferson and all that.
if anything.
But that, and then we had time
Right.
on our own to do our government, standing our election Holocaust.
I think
Definitely worth
we can always look at the
Guys,
water.
we're live.
Okay.
Got a girlfriend of mine.
I don't see anything that wouldn't say.
I was trying to say Santa Claus just went out.
She was
You,
saying.
I know she's up on all that stuff and then, all of a sudden,
I didn't do
something
that.
came up, and I said, what?
You ready to
Haven't
do
you
that?
seen that?
I was trying to look at one more thing. What?
You still have it.
Yeah, I don't know who did that.
This is amazing.
Mural areas will not be painted. Okay, there. Okay. You ready to roll? We are. Everybody ready to roll? Oh. Returning coming.
Tom?
Do this. Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Oxford Board of Commissioners agenda meeting to order. Today is Monday, November 7th, 2022. It is 5:30 p.m. and we are assembled here in the Commissioners Boardroom of City Hall. If you have electronic devices, please mute them or turn them off at this time. And before we move forward to set the agenda for next week's regular session on November 15th, we have a number of items to discuss tonight, and that is actually a number of pieces under one item, which is to consider approving the following recommendations to assist the recruitment and retention efforts of the City of Oxford. Recruitment and retention of personnel by the City of Oxford, especially within the Oxford Police Department, remains challenging. The following recommendations are offered as a way to address these challenges. Recruitment. To date, the City of Oxford has conducted a departmental-specific salary study that resulted in the city increasing the hiring rate of police officers in order to remain competitive within the market which the City of Oxford exists. The city has also implemented merit pay, which will allow the employees of the City of Oxford to advance their individual pay status depending on their work performance. In addition, the city has established a professional development plan that rewards employees for obtaining educational degrees and/or job-specific professional development or training opportunities. It is the opinion of the management of the city that more must be done in order for the city to be truly successful in meeting and overcoming these challenges. Recommendations to assist in the recruitment of the Oxford Police Department personnel and other City of Oxford positions to be critical include adding a sign-on bonus of $4,000 to be paid out over the course of the first 2 years of employment, moving expenses up to $5,000 to be paid out over the course of the first 2 years of employment, housing assistance of $500 a month, not to exceed 6 months. The retention of both. So I'm wondering, because there are so many items in this, do we want to maybe consider one section at a time and then move forward to the next? What is the pleasure of the board? Or do you want me to go through all of this at once?
I would motion that we go through it section by section.
Section by section?
Ideally, yes, please.
Okay, so are you good with, let's discuss the recruitment section and then we'll go on to the retention section? Or Brian made a motion, excuse me, Commissioner Khan, made a motion to go through it section by section. What is the pleasure of the board? Or is there discussion on the motion? I apologize. No discussion? Everybody in favor of the motion to go through section by section, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries. I apologize for my moving around there a little loosely. Okay, so we have retention, sign-on bonus of $4,000, recruitment, sign-on bonus of $4,000, moving expenses up to $5,000, and housing assistance up to $500 a month. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to see the sign-on bonus increased to at least 5,000.
Okay, are you, making a
I'm
motion
making
on
that,
that?
an amendment to that.
Okay,
yeah.
so you're making a
Motion
motion.
to
Are
increase
you
that.
making a motion just to discuss the sign-on bonus, or would you like to include all three items? You wanna do sign-on bonus and then move to each one?
Yeah, we do the sign-on bonus and we move to each one, I think. That's the best way. of
Okay,
doing it.
Commissioner Tovey has motion to approve a sign-on bonus of $5,000 to be paid out over the course of the first 2 years of employment. Is there any discussion?
I just have one question. So, first 2 years of employment, how do you intend on paying that? Is it on a quarterly basis across 24 months, or what is the schedule, or has that been determined?
Month by month?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Thornton?
Well, I think we envision there being some significant lump sum payment to begin with for the sign-on bonus to actually be advantageous enough for the individual to take advantage of. And then an additional payment after 6 months, and then probably the last one within 18 months. So it would not be 2 years, but
Okay.
within those first
Sure.
2 years.
Okay. So to clarify, we're looking, yeah, so that would essentially on a 6-month basis is what it sounds like.
Chief Ford, do you have any thoughts on this particular item? That approach makes sense to you?
It does, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It seems to be on course with what a lot of other municipalities are doing.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments?
6 months would be a good space because it would also minimize the impact on the financial area for trying to do it monthly or something like that.
Okay, excellent. All in favor of Commissioner Tovey's motion to approve a sign-on bonus of $5,000, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. And for the record for Commissioner Bridges, we're reviewing the items that management has put on the table for recommendations to assist with recruitment and retention, and the board approved a motion first to consider each section separately. And Commissioner Tovey just made, a moment we've done a motion on the first bullet on the first page, and Commissioner Tovey motioned to increase the sign-on bonus to $5,000. And Commissioner Khan asked for detail on the first 2 years of employment, and the detail was a good, are you thinking, Mr. Thornton, a third, a third, a third?
I guess to a certain extent now, it depends upon what you finalize as far as the amount. If it's going to be 5,000, I'm thinking more of initially providing 2,500 and then the remainder over the last.
1250. So that's, the board has approved the 5,000. You just approved that when
Yes.
you were coming in, Commissioner. So that's what we've covered so far.
Question, Jackie?
Yes, ma'am?
So are you saying we're approving it literally, like the vote is tonight versus next week?
That's what we just voted on.
I mean,
That's-
versus just amending what we have written on this agenda?
No, we just
Okay.
approved
I'm
it.
just kidding.
Okay,
I'm
no,
just
that's-
trying to catch back up then.
We
I'm
wanted,
good.
that's why, Commissioner Gilreath, it's on the agenda for tonight, is because it is to be considered and approved tonight, which was something that we discussed in that personnel committee meeting. I can't even, yes, I think personnel, public safety, whatever was the meeting where we discussed it, we discussed timing and moving along swiftly, that it was agreed at that time to put it on tonight's agenda. So,
Okay, and I say aye.
you're adding your aye to
Yep.
that? Okay, excellent. So now we move forward to the second bullet, which is moving expenses up to 5,000 to be paid out over the course of the first 2 years of employment. What is the pleasure of the board?
I think, again, we'd like to know how it would be paid out. you know, of what sort of, you say within the first 2 years, but is that every 6 months, over 18 months, or?
No, I don't. That one slipped by me. Apparently, been being placed on your agenda. Moving expenses would be paid up to $5,000 after the move is made and the individual presents
Okay,
receipts,
All right.
basically, for the moving expenses.
That's,
Got it.
so it would be paid out upon
receipt,
receipt of approved receipts.
yeah.
Can I
So
get that?
move.
Question?
Yep, and you may want to make that after 6 months. We do want to make sure that somebody's here for a little bit of time with us.
Would
Okay.
it be, oh, I'm sorry.
Teresa had her hand.
The parameters to pay out this $5,000, who will be actually entitled to it? I mean, moving expenses from a certain distance or, uprooting their whole family? I don't know, what are the parameters?
Sit in.
And like to where?
Well, that's my question.
To the city of
I mean-
Oxford?
Inside the city limits of the city of Oxford is where they would have to move their residents.
To the city limits of Oxford.
Mhm.
But it doesn't
Well-
matter if they're coming from the outside of the city limits of Oxford. If they move into the city limits, that's what qualifies, moving into the city limits of Oxford. No matter whether they're coming from past Revlon and moving, a few inches in, or coming from Creedmoor or Raleigh or Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And I have a follow-up question. I don't know if you're finished.
I'm finished.
But I think she's
but-
finished, but I think we need an answer.
Yeah, we
If,
do.
if you can hold your question
Yeah,
till,
that's it.
unless yours
I'm
is
fine.
directly related to that.
Well, in some
Okay.
ways it is.
Okay.
Because we have in place a 40-mile take-home policy. And my question would be, if we've got that distance take-home policy, couldn't we get new recruits who live that far away from the city?
We can, but the problem is that in essence, one doesn't require changing the other, but in essence, if you've got somebody who can drive 40 miles, we're going to be paying for them to commute, and as soon as they find a job that requires less of a commute, closer to home, I think that's the reason for the move. They are more likely to leave. So whether it's training purposes that we serve as the training ground, they have that incentive of an hour commute or so to look for something closer to home. But if we pay them to move, which doesn't stop someone from not wanting to move and taking advantage of the take-home car, but if somebody lives in Oxford, they're maybe going to be more inclined to want to stay here. I think that was
It is. That's the initiative
should have
behind
cheaper
that
housing.
recommendation, is to get them here in Oxford, becoming Oxford citizens, and therefore
That should be
they'd be less likely to leave. We've already seen it with recruits that have come, and even those that have had take-home vehicles, if they live, 20, 30 miles away, they have ultimately left us. That's just the reality of the situation. I don't know that increasing it to 40 miles is going to make a lot of difference when they find some new job. So getting them here, getting them as a part of the community, and getting them basically a homeowner in different neighborhoods is also a part of the initiative as well.
okay.
It just makes good sense all around, in my opinion. Getting back to the original question of parameters, I think that bears some conversation as to how we set those parameters and what they should be, and whether, well, I'll defer back to the board in regards to that as far as an open conversation and establishing parameters in regards to how far.
Question? Could we,
yes, sir.
sorry, could we use the ETJ and rather than the city limits? Would that be agreeable to the board? rather than the city limits, but use the ETJ as the,
What
Outer
is your
perimeter?
rationale to say no
well,
to the
because,
ETJ?
you know, like Commissioner Gildy said, if someone lives just the other side of Revlon there, that would still be in the ETJ, but it's not in the city limits.
I was jokingly saying, if the
Oh.
person lived on the other side of Revlon, and then they only moved a couple of 100 feet into the city limits, right on the other side of
Right.
Revlon,
Oh,
you
right.
know, could they get the moving allowance? And my thought would be, yes, if they move within the city limits.
Commissioner
Okay.
Tovey, Tovey, look at me, John, I apologize.
We look alike, we're twins, we
Yeah,
get
we're
confused all the
twins.
time.
The other guy.
No, first of all, I agree. I was just gonna put some clarity, having taken advantage of several moving packages. Typically, what I've seen is there's a ring around, wherever it is. So if it's a 100-mile radius, let's say, I'm just throwing a number out there, then that's where that payout starts. Although I much prefer if we have somebody who just happen to live in Vance County, we recruit them to come work here. Not making a suggestion, just saying just usually put a ring around it, whatever that is, and that's your standard. And then from there, I would suggest if someone were to take advantage of this benefit, that as opposed to a reimbursement over time, potentially, it would be an immediate reimbursement upon approved moving expenses, and then they would be subject to a repay penalty if they decided to leave. It accomplishes the same thing. It's just if they come out, moving's expensive, right?
Right, and the city
Yeah.
manager had already corrected that.
Okay, well,
that
yeah.
piece, But not the recall.
Yeah, well, if I recall, we did say that, but I didn't, as I was taking notes, it sounded like it could be either or in terms of how we manage that reimbursement.
No, I think he meant what he said was that he missed that bit in reviewing the agenda, that it should have said upon receipt, upon getting the
Should be
approved
upon
receipts.
submittal of, appropriate receipts. But
Okay.
I'm not agreeing to establishing some additional parameters
Yeah.
on that.
Gotcha.
Because I think you need some.
Well, yeah, no, I agree, because I just want to make sure that if they move, we cover it, because that's an expensive, if anyone's ever moved, that's really expensive. That they're able to get reimbursed, and then, of course, if they make the decision to move on elsewhere within whatever that allotted time is, 2 years, 1 year, whatever, again,
So do you
whatever
have a
determined.
suggestion? That would be the
Yeah.
follow-up question. Do you have a
I
suggestion
would
for-
love to hear, the board's thoughts. I'm, perfectly fine with what the group thinks, but I don't have a specific suggestion of what that time frame should be.
I agree with Brian with regards to a payback in the event that they maybe don't meet probation or decide on another job or get a better offer someplace else after they move.
Termination, things like that.
That we get, or termination, that we receive that money back. Because the goal is that you want to incentivize people coming and staying and doing this thing called longevity with Oxford, not just playing Russian roulette with us.
So the question is there a suggestion?
Can I
from-
ask a question of our HR director? Hi.
Absolutely.
Is there, in your opinion, a standard to this in terms of a clawback clause, as I would refer to it? I mean, is that like a standard 2-year type thing? If we pay out and someone leaves, that we have the right to claw back or get repaid?
It may be difficult.
Certainly it is, but.
Melissa, you want me to take that one?
It doesn't ever work.
I think it'd be a mess.
It's difficult to enforce.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be a
Essentially,
mess.
in that instance, it's my opinion that you're going to have more success simply tweaking potentially your existing policies to include this and state in some way, shape, or form to meet all policies in order to get like vacation payout
Mhm.
and, your final paycheck
Yeah.
type of thing. Because trying to go through small claims
Exactly.
in order to get that, we have difficulty doing it now with people
Yeah,
that have
no,
lived
I-
less than 2 years and have actually done a contract agreement with the city.
Let me to clarify, that was my point. We would have the means to withhold those, hold those benefits, not that we would go and, debt collect. But we would retain whatever those assets are to compensate for that.
So what I'm hearing the manager say is that you tie that to an exit discussion in general, and I would say the other piece is ideally, making the decision to move is not something that anybody undertakes lightly unless, for example, they're in an apartment and if you own a home somewhere, getting up and moving. So if, my hope would be if anybody is interested in doing that, we definitely want them
Oh,
to
absolutely.
come because, that's why I'm here.
Yeah,
Because I fell in love with Oxford once we got here and didn't want to leave. So I would hope that we would do all the things right in the community to make somebody think this is something I really want to consider, and that once they get here, not in that Pollyanna-ish, we don't have to worry about it, but given the legal issues, it sounds like what Mr. Thornton is saying, is you tie it to the final paycheck.
Yeah, and that is perfectly okay. I'm just trying to understand what the guardrails are here, and then what the suggested time frame of that would be. At what point does that expire, and they're no longer accountable for that reimbursement?
Mayor, if I could suggest, knowing that there are a lot of questions that continue to need to be thought through with this one particular bullet in regarding these recommendations, let's table this one and deal with it on Tuesday, and we can provide you with some additional parameters of a recommendation
Right.
in regards to that and establishing a policy for moving expenses. Because a number of things come into play, and you're gonna provide moving expenses for someone, to move in. I can just see some issues the more I think about it, and the wheels start spinning a little bit more, it comes to you from wherever. And their family stays there and they move here into an apartment, and do I get moving expenses? They need to be clarified so that it's clear.
Okay.
And I think we can, work on that a little bit to try to refine that and bring you something for next Tuesday.
Okay, and I have two comments, Mayor Pro Tem and then Commissioner Bullock.
I yield to Ron.
I'm just gonna say, I agree with that, but I would still like to see it defined as within city limits.
Right. Okay, excellent. Mayor Pro Tem?
Quan.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, why only individuals who move within the city would be able to benefit from this bullet. I mean, I guess if that's what we decide to do, is fine, but I think that would, to some extent, affect recruiting. Because let's just say that somebody wants to move closer, but they don't want to move within the city limits, but they are a good officer. Do we want to say that you have to move within the city limits? I'm just concerned about recruiting and that requirement. And because, and I'm trying to jive it with our take-home policy.
I'll
Commissioner
I'll
Lopez?
piggyback on that. I agree with that. I mean, from my understanding, I'm not really sure that the officers want to live where they police. I mean, they might want to live in Creedmoor or, I guess, the take-home policy. I don't know if that's the proper method of measuring it, but I mean, is this going to be used? That's my thing. Are people going to want to move inside the city limits and then also work in the city limits? In that job, I mean, I'm not against it. That's just an idea.
That's where I come back to the ring. If whatever that ring would
Where you're
be.
moving from and a certain, it's an interesting, and I think the manager's proposal that it be tabled and they come back with some suggestions and parameters as Commissioner
what do you-
Gilreath asked for, I think is a good idea. I would throw out that once upon a time, the take-home car policy was for only people within the city limits, because it is city dollars that are paying these benefits. And an officer who, I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just pointing out some history that you're taking the people's money, and we definitely want to attract officers, and I don't know what is the best way, but I think justification is, if you're gonna take the people's money, you want them coming in and paying taxes. And once upon a time, again, the presence of a police car from our jurisdiction within city limits has its own impact on crime and activity
It does.
versus being parked in Durham.
Well, we already have the principle of chief of police or other staff members
Absolutely.
are required to relocate to within the city limits. Are they not?
I think not anymore. The city manager is required, absolutely, that is a requirement for the
But
manager.
I don't disagree with Commissioner Bullock. I think if you're going to take the money or seek to avail yourself to the money, then you need to meet that policy. And that policy is that we want you in the city. So if we're going to table it until Tuesday, the additional thought that I will add is, if you have some comments on it, please send them to me prior to
Okay.
next Tuesday to help us formulate that recommendation. Because, you know, we could sit back and have a conversation for 2 hours about it. But I'm not saying that we can appease everyone and everything, but it's good to know your thoughts as we put that together and refine it a little bit.
Excellent, thank you, and, as there, and again, this doesn't have to be decided because it is being tabled, but since Commissioner Khan asked about, is there a general sense that a 2-year period for, you know, if you leave before 2 years, there's gonna be some kind of effort and consequence, or to pass that to the manager?
So I
or-
would defer to an HR best practice, whatever that is. And frankly, Commissioner Bullock might have a better frame on that with his experience and what is standard. My experience is personally was 2 years, but I don't know if that is adequate, inadequate, or what. So I'm not gonna wade into those waters, but just curious of what they would be.
I would say more than adequate,
Okay.
2 years.
Okay, so that's, you've got that to put in your hat as you're
What happens a
considering.
lot of times is, please correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes in moving, certain bills are right there at you, but certain other bills you have to wait. So there's a time element in there, but I think 2 years is plenty of time.
Okay, excellent. So we move on, everybody's in favor of tabling till Tuesday.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, we move forward to the next item, which is housing assistance of $500 a month, not to exceed 6 months. And what is the pleasure of the board?
I think that goes along with where they're moving to. Is it within the city limits?
My question is, what are we assisting
So that
with?
goes, that,
Absolutely.
What are we assisting with?
We are assisting with, basically, if someone moves to the city of Oxford, and they move in, oftentimes it's younger folks that are going to find an apartment first. And providing them with some housing assistance gets them here, gets them settled, you know, gets them ahead of the game, I guess,
Okay.
rather than, you know, expending every dime that they possibly have. So trying to keep them away from the frame of mind of looking for greener pastures immediately. You know, after they get their first paycheck, and if they're right out of BLET and they don't know who FICA is or anything like that.
Yeah, they haven't met him yet.
Yeah, I haven't met him yet,
they
and, you know, see it and go, I didn't expect all this, and I thought it was gonna be more than that. But, you know, I think that's the whole intent, is to up the ante, so to speak, for the city to be competitive, and this is where the market is trending. It really is. I don't like it, and I wish we had people lined up at our doorstep. That'd be wonderful, but we don't, and you're gonna have to really decide just how competitive that you really want to be. Others are doing it. I mean, it's even on the county's agenda tonight for them to talk about recruitment and retention bonuses. So, you know, it's not just the city of Oxford, and it's getting more competitive all the time. You know, I envision someone moving and they've got housing expenses, be it rent or mortgage, and we assist them with that for their first 6 months and get them settled, get them in Oxford.
Helps with
and
deposits
yes,
and so
in
on.
the city limits of Oxford. I don't see that the city can pay city tax
What
dollars
the power is.
to someone renting an apartment outside the city limits. That's just me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does
I
that,
just
any
wanted it
further
verbalized.
questions or discussion on
I just have
this?
one.
Yes, sir.
So just taking it back to the top of these 3 bullets, specific language in here, you know, this is to assist the police department, personnel and other City of Oxford positions. Just want to define what the other is in that terms. Does that mean that this is a potential benefit for positions within the fire department, public works, finance, across the board?
And is there a word related to that? Because it says Oxford positions to be critical. Should it be, is the word considered missing from that, so it's related
I
to?
believe it is, yes.
Other city of
So all
Oxford positions
departments
to be.
that are considered to be critical
We
hires.
probably used the language that Granville County's using, which was in there, I believe, initially. They're talking about high vacancy rates in certain mission-critical areas, such as Sheriff's Department and emergency communications.
So this would be.
But I'm sorry, you go, and then I'll ask my question. I apologize.
So, yeah, I want to make sure that we define what that critical is in terms of, you know, certainly I think the fire department's critical. I think public works is critical. I think, you know, there's critical is subjective, right? So what I would like for us to decide what that ultimately means.
And that was what I was gonna go to, related to the fact that I know that there are several positions in public works that have been vacant for a long time, I believe. So is critical the best definition, or hard to hire? So that, you know, if you have a pending vacancy for, you know, and I don't know which is the best, but
Off the cuff, I think it would be those higher risk positions, skilled positions that are hard, you know, certainly Public Works has lots of vacancies. There are other departments that have vacancies, but if we, as you described it, using that specific language, I think that almost makes it a bit more gray. Meaning, because there's positions that have been open for a long time in engineering and I believe finance as well. And does that, you know, that then encompasses those areas, and is that what the intent is? Just
It's
want to
not
make
my
sure.
intent, no, not in providing you these recommendations, it is not. It is, I mean, right now, within the police department, you know, we're down 30% or greater. That's critical.
Yes.
When we're talking about critical and providing emergency response services, that's what I mean by critical. And, you know, you can come up with about anything, just like you stated, over a year's period of time, all these kind of things. With Public Works, you know, Public Works, we do receive applications and we do continue to fill positions. Sometimes we have multiple positions that are the same thing, so, you know, it's,
Yeah.
I think that you're going to have to utilize it. It's hard to pin it down, but by using similar language to what the county is using, and they're saying that those positions where vacancies pose particularly urgent risk for the county and surrounding jurisdictions, that type of critical need.
So can
Is
we,
what I'm trying to,
yeah,
attack.
would we want to maybe define it as the positions that we see as like on-call positions, right? So clearly, police and fire on call. Public Works would be on call. There might be some other positions like within water and sewer, that would be on call. But those would be, I would define that as critical because those are the ones who'd be getting up at 3 a.m. to go deal with a critical issue, whatever it might be. So would that help us define the parameter? And that's a question.
And then Commissioner Gilreath, are you tag teaming with him? Okay, so please go.
I was just curious though, if critical, if we have a police force of 30 officers and we're only down one would not be critical, right? So then we need to base this upon a percentage of the available positions that we currently that we currently budget for. And once it gets to that level, then it becomes critical.
If you got a department of one and that person's gone,
Well-
that's 100%.
Well, but you never know when somebody's gonna die, Alan. I mean, so,
True.
I mean, no,
It's not me
I mean,
anytime
no,
soon,
no.
nor anybody else.
I mean, but otherwise, we're gonna be in a quandary trying to qualify what critical is.
Yep, and I hate to say it, but I think that's why at some point in time you have to have faith and trust in human resources and management to make those decisions regarding personnel and determining which ones and which positions are deemed to be critical.
And I will be devil's advocate and say that I think it needs to be defined by the departments specifically. We need, certainly within city management's purview to make certain decisions, but we need guidelines. And I would say that we would probably want to make that police department, fire department, public works, and elements of other departments that again are on call, that would be folks that we would need here if you know what hit the fan, quite literally, in the case of broken sewer pipes and everything else. But those are the folks that we would want here in Oxford at 3 a.m. to fix an issue in a position that we would want filled. And I would define that as critical, and making sure that we maintain those positions.
Commissioner Bridges.
Yeah, right now, you know, I kind of want to focus on the police department because of the fact that, you know, that is an issue that's been raised by a lot of our citizens about concerns about enough protection. I think to expand it probably requires a little more discussion. Because, I mean, you know, and I think I've heard Mayor Pro Tem say all of our employees are important, and I agree with that. But I think we have to continue to work within our budgetary abilities. And I don't think that there's any question about the concerns and the problems with our police department. And that's why I am a little bit concerned about these incentives only being applicable to new recruits that live within the city of Oxford. I mean, you know, and I think that someone mentioned, what if they want to live in Creedmoor, or what if they want to live in Henderson? And I know there's some concerns about tax dollars being used for them if they live in Butner or if they live in Henderson. Well, the bottom line is, when they're serving as police officers here in Oxford, they are providing a benefit to City of Oxford citizens. So I don't have a problem with any new recruits getting the benefits of the, you know, of the housing assistance and the moving expenses, even if they determine that they don't want to move into the city limits. I just don't think that that should be, because I could see two recruits coming to the police department, and one lives just outside of the city limits, and the other one lives within the city limit. and the distinction being made between those two recruits. I am of the opinion we need to recruit some good officers, and if they happen to not want to live within the city limits, they still should be able to benefit from these incentives.
The sign-on bonus is regardless
I understand.
of where they live. So the discussion about moving, and so you're saying housing assistance should be, any new recruit should get housing assistance regardless of where they live, is that what I'm hearing you say?
As long as it's within the parameters of, you know, what we have as a policy in terms of the take-home policy.
And I could get behind that too.
So you're saying if they live within 40 miles of the city of Oxford, they should get the housing assistance?
That's right.
Okay.
And let's say that the housing assistance is 10,000, they still gonna just get 5,000, right?
No, the housing assistance is 500 a month for.
Well, I
up to
meant the
6.
moving expense.
The moving
Yeah.
expense, 5,000.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't change just because someone lives 35 miles away from the city of Oxford. I mean, you know, the moving, the
The amount.
$5,000 doesn't change.
Correct, but correct.
So I see no reason to make any difference, in my opinion.
Commissioner Khan.
So I agree with that, because as Commissioner Bridges was speaking, it occurred to me that with specifically to law enforcement, and as we've seen in other sectors, people being threatened, people having hits put out on, there's lots of things in those people who live in certain areas. While it's, you know, nice to have people doing community policing, there is an element currently where there is I can see a desire to not want to live where you work, given that level of interaction that specifically some of our police officers may encounter. And so I can see that, and I think the only thing that I'm still very passionate about is, again, defining it with regard specifically to the moving expenses, is making sure that, again, we encompass those critical positions.
Question, Jackie.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Back to the critical in the police department, it's possible we could add the fire department in this, because I don't think it's too many times that our police respond to an accident or an incident that our fire department is not with them. And coming up soon, we're gonna have several firemen retiring. If we're gonna grow, we wanna grow our fire department too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's where I made the argument, you know, if we define critical as being the folks that we need to have on call, because, you know, we grow, the maintenance of our infrastructure grows. And if we have a critical break or we have something regarding public works, we can make, so I would just say to keep it clean, right? To keep it clean and simple, that these folks with these departments are deemed critical, and they would have be eligible for those benefits. To the same extent of saying that folks who live within that 40-mile radius, as it were, are eligible for the benefits. It just keeps it clean. Everything follows sort of the same policy.
So, yes,
Commissioner.
so,
Gilreath first.
Yes.
so are we really saying that someone who is a new recruit and currently lives in Creedmoor and accepts a position here in Oxford, they will automatically just get a housing allowance, period, regardless of what happens? Okay.
Well, see,
Oh.
that's, I
I
think what
mean,
Commissioner,
Yeah.
that's what it sounded like
Yeah,
Commissioner Bridges was saying,
That's
and
what
that,
I thought.
so I think there's three
Maybe we
separate
look-
areas, and we need to
Exactly.
make sure we're all on the same page.
Exactly. I mean, my thought would be, is that in order to get this housing allowance, it's just one of the perks of being a new recruit, is that if the perk is gonna be for the benefit of Oxford, if they want to take it, they can move into Oxford, and if they don't want to take it, maybe they can stay where they are or live wherever they choose to live, and maybe their wives live in Henderson, or maybe their wives work in Warrenton, it doesn't matter, but they may want to be mid-range. I mean, and so there's a lot of variables that are going into this, and so when we pick, literally we're just picking some parameters, and then these are going to be the rules that the board has set, and we just follow these rules, whatever they may be. I mean, if the officer falls in it, he benefits, and if he doesn't, live within the city limits, if that's what we choose, he doesn't get this benefit, but all the other perks are there.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not,
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so-
Commissioner Bridges, I think Commissioner Tovey
Yeah.
was after Commissioner.
Well,
Miller.
what I was thinking of was, don't forget, if we recruit a new police officer, he's gonna be at the lower end of the pay scale. So by moving out of the city limits or buying a property or something outside of the city limits, it's gonna be cheaper for him. So these benefits should apply to them as well as within the city
It was-
limits. I just,
Yeah.
it just makes sense that they're on the lower end of the pay scale.
Well, you don't
when-
know, I mean, I think that depends on what level.
If they're a new
of
police
recruiting.
officer,
So,
certainly are.
Commissioner Bridges.
Maybe I'm missing the point here. Now, I thought that the only officers that would benefit from this are officers who
No.
are moving. So I didn't know that this meant that, let's say you get a recruit in Creedmoor, that we pay this housing assistance when they're not moving.
No.
Right, so, no, the intent.
Because I thought it was that they moved here
That's my
from
intention.
somewhere.
You're right
You know
on.
what I mean?
You're right
If
on.
they
To be
live
eligible for
somewhere,
that,
I didn't think they'd get this benefit.
Right.
If you're not moving, you shouldn't receive the
Yeah.
benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So
That's what
that-
we were saying,
That's
yeah.
the intent is
Is-
the first bullet of the sign-on
Right,
bonus,
right.
which has been approved. Everybody that
Gets
is
that.
recruited is entitled to the sign-on bonus.
Right.
And Commissioner Khan's point was to define mission critical. And I know that when we were in that meeting discussing these, what the manager has been consistently saying is that we want to treat everybody in the city equitably. And so by not restricting it to the police department only and by categorizing it as mission critical or critical, that however that is, and that he said that's a management decision, that would definitely apply to the police department but not exclude other departments. Is that a
That's
reasonable
correct.
way to say that?
That's correct, but it can't include every position. Every
No.
position is
Right.
not going to be deemed mission critical,
Correct.
or however you choose to do
So,
that.
and then with the moving expenses, that is to counter, one incentive is the 40-mile radius for take-home cars. But a consequence of that has been noticed is that sometimes we lose those officers earlier on in the game because if something comes up closer to home, they go. So with an eye on making it more desirable for them to stay, we're willing to foot that bill for them to move, or a part of it, up to $5,000 for them to move. So they'll be closer to here, maybe less inclined to take on a commute that would draw them away from Oxford. So it's a balance.
Was the proposal was put together, our recommendations were put together as a multi-purposeful recommendation for both short-term and long-term. And, you can look at something short-term and throw some money at it, and it's not gonna solve your problem long-term. Our problem long-term is not only recruitment, but keeping them here. And that's really, the purpose behind it is both. A multi-pronged approach to try to get people, make Oxford attractive, give the police chief and the department the tools they need to be more effective in competitive recruiting, and once we have them, keep them. And you gotta set that pipeline up in some way, shape, or form in a new era and start doing just that, or, you know, we're gonna continue down this road. It's not pleasant. It's really not.
So I thought I saw Commissioner Tran, and then, but if you'll yield to Commissioner Gilreath?
I have, I'm gonna ask a question to bring clarity. I'm gonna explain my perception of what I was, and I believe Commissioner Bridges was saying. If I go as a department head, and let's just say I recruit somebody in a critical position from, let's just say, Salisbury, North Carolina, right? Well, far away. And they choose to move here, then they could qualify for the moving expense and the housing assistance. And what I was saying as it relates to my agreement with Commissioner Bridges was that they just need to move within that, let's just say, 40-mile ring of Oxford, okay? So the qualified person would be someone that we went and recruited from way outside, right? Outside of the, just wherever, and they had, if they moved to within, again, that defined ring of 40 miles, then they could qualify for the benefit. Not somebody living in Creedmoor,
Yes.
or living in Butner and then moving to Creedmoor, or living within that range already would not qualify. I look at it as we went out and we selectively recruited, or we went out and pulled talent from somewhere else, a community college down the Sandhills, let's say, that had a program. We pulled those recruits in. Then if they wanted to live here within that defined area, then it keeps it clean, because we already have that established take-home policy.
So then if they moved and then 6 months later they were hired by Raleigh because they lived
Well,
closer
as we-
to Raleigh, but we paid for them to move?
There would be if you recall, then there would be a payback for those benefits. We're not a moving service by any stretch, but we would certainly get them as close as they could comfortably afford or want to live within that range. We already established 40 miles, so keep it simple.
Commissioner Gilreath?
Well, I think we will have some contradiction here if we deal with this car 40-mile radius that we've already set in place, and then not have something that's equivalent as far as housing. And then my question becomes, which is more important, the housing allowance or the take-home car? And can we undo one of these? I mean, or something, because Quan is, I understand what he's saying, because there's an imbalance there in a sense. Because of the take-home car thing, it doesn't jive. It doesn't send the same message across the board.
They serve different purposes.
Yeah, I know they
that
serve different
take home-
purposes, but the cost is still to the city.
But the take
The
home
car is 40 miles going out and coming back in every day. That's another cost to the city. Is in addition to any moving expenses that someone may get if they come from Salisbury. That seems a little clearer, but why would it be any different from someone coming from Durham who wants to move a little closer to a job here in Oxford, or want to, get a little closer, or, so I think maybe we need to, I don't know, which one is more important, the take-home car or?
I think they serve different purposes.
Two
If
different-
somebody
I mean-
likes to live where they're living, but is interested in working for the city of Oxford, the incentive is that we pay for that take-home car up to that.
But I think our quandary was, do they have to live within the city limits, or do they have to just get within 40 miles?
Any comments? Wait. Yes, sir.
What was that, was that an answer?
I don't know about answering. I've given you my recommendations. Y'all are just debating the recommendations now, so, providing answers to something that the board is debating, I don't know is my role. I will add this, that if you're going to go down the road potentially of paying relocation and living expenses or housing assistance for those moving within a 40-mile radius of the city, you might want to consider something along the lines of the moving expenses being up to $5,000 for moving to the city of Oxford and $2,500 moving within a 40-mile radius. Something along those lines, just food for thought.
I was thinking that too. If the main goal is to get, I mean, really the main goal is to get officers here, right? So,
And to keep them here.
I still think it's hard to respond. It's hard for somebody living 40 miles away to respond to emergencies being 40 miles away.
right. Well, what I was getting at, you know, if the main goal is if we want them to live in the city limits, I mean, I was thinking in my mind, we can meet, why can't we meet in the middle and do what Alan just said is, you know, have the full benefit here, the 5,000, if they move into the city limits, and then half of that if they move within the 40. I think that's a good compromise. I think the end goal is, you know, we have to get people in here, and I think that'd be attractive. I mean, and I think it is a real thing that I don't think, if the way it is, I don't think it's going, you know, it might work in a few certain cases, but I mean, I think it'll be pretty rare that somebody will want to live in the city limits and police here. That's just my thought.
I like that.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Chief Ford, do you have additional thoughts that you would like to add?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I think 40 miles is, though it's appreciated, I have to stop and think about things such as every officer now, currently, with the police department has a take-home form. We have 2 spare vehicles. If we suddenly get an influx of applications in, which I would like to see, and hopefully maybe by the 1st of January, we hire 8 officers. I don't have 8 patrol vehicles. Currently we have some on back order. They will not be here until the spring of 2023. So there we're stuck with, yes, we're offering you this and we're offering that take home, but we don't have a car to give to you. That's where I just think it really needs to be within the city limits or within 5, maybe 5 to 7 miles of the city limits, even up to 10 miles or 40 miles. That's cushion. And when you say 40 miles, I also think of emergency situations such as we had a couple of weeks ago. 40 miles, waking you up in the middle of the night to respond to an incident that has happened near the city, like the incident on Piedmont. It's going to take you, by the time you get up and actually get dressed and get in your vehicle and drive here safely, that's over an hour that's been exhausted. You're no good to me. I'm still going to have to call in units from other agencies to assist. The goal would be, to me, is to get people within the county limits. City would be great. Not a lot of officers want to live within the city limits anymore. So we see it as being very hazardous to us. Commissioner Khan made a very valid point a while ago. We have to be concerned for our families that we leave at home at night while we're out working. But I think maybe within 10 miles of the city limits.
Or 10 miles of the city center, so it's like a radius? You prefer city limits?
I would prefer city limits. I think that's very reasonable. But again, my biggest issue with that is, are we gonna have enough vehicles? Are we gonna be able to produce, or not produce, are we gonna be able to purchase, or possibly even lease the lease program, which is something that we're looking at also. How quickly can we do that?
Am I just missing something? I thought that we were asked to extend the take-home policy mileage.
Yes, and you were, and we like that. I mean, that benefits our current officers that we have now. But what I'm saying is if we include that and say, and as a bonus, if you move within 40 miles, then the city will provide these additional funds up to $5,000
So the chief is proposing within 10
I
miles.
think within 10 miles is very reasonable.
And keep it at the,
Because I go
keep
back
it at
to-
the 5,000.
I go back to the end of the day, when you start pushing people out, we have people that live in Bun currently, Roxborough, that live deep into Roxborough. In an emergency crisis situation, if they are essential personnel, and when I'm saying essential, I mean crime scene, or they're specialized as a sniper or hostage negotiator, or any of those critical positions, we basically have to hold it boots to the ground until we can get them to actually come in, and it could take them an hour and a half to potentially get here. I just think we should try and bring people as close to Oxford,
So,
at least in the Brown County as we possibly can.
Chief, the manager suggested 5,000 within the limits and a lower amount within a radius. Are you saying, yes, that would work, and you suggest the radius be within 10 miles of the city limits, and maybe the lower amount is, if we're gonna keep it as close as within 10 miles, the lower amount is up to 3,000 to move within those 10 miles?
And I look at these too, these recommendations or suggestions, we should say, they are options, they are choices. You may come here and say, okay, well, I'll choose a sign-on bonus, but I'm not really interested in moving. But I
Right.
still can get that sign-on bonus. But if I already live within 10 miles, or I will move within 10 miles, don't worry about the moving expenses, but I would like to take the opportunity to use the stipend for 6 months. Does it have to be one or none, or can it be something that we can sit down and talk to each applicant about, what you feel would benefit you, or what you're interested in trying to recoup as far as what is offered?
It's a good point. I think they should have the option
Right.
to opt out or
May
opt
be
in.
entitled, not you shall be entitled in this,
Yeah.
but just the fact that you may be. It's something, it's an advantage that the city is offering, but it's up to you as an individual to choose whether or not you want to take advantage of
Right.
everything that's being offered.
Good
Is
point.
that something that would be presented in HR when that individual goes to HR, or in your recruiting?
They're probably through the recruitment.
In the recruiting
In the recruiting.
process, I mean, that's how you reel them in.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think we can cast the net a little bit further by doing it that way versus saying within 40 miles. I really do.
So an additional question related to that, and thank you very much for that input, because it's better for us if we're not just shooting darts into the void. Given that desire to get them in as close as possible, would it make sense to have that highest amount if you relocate within the city, a lower amount within 10 miles, and do proportionately also for the rental assistance? Or do you want the rental, Chief, would you suggest the rental assist? So I guess what I'm thinking is, if you come all the way in and you live within the city, you can get 500. Just for sake of argument, I threw out 3,000 before, and if you're living within 10 miles of the radius, your rental assistance is 300. Would that,
Right. Just let an applicant know that these are the options that the city of Oxford is offering to you as a potential employee. Now, whether or not they choose to, take advantage of the moving expense or the monthly stipend for 6 months, that's entirely up to them.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have it sounded like you had a thought.
That may have been me.
Okay, I
No,
apologize.
you mentioned rental assistance, and I just thought.
Oh, I said
we're
rental.
opening this
No,
thing
I
up.
meant,
wide.
no, but I used the term, it was housing assistance, and the manager was clear, housing, rental or mortgage. I apologize, I used the incorrect term. Or housing assistance overall.
And to think about it this way too, do we really want to extend it to 40 miles? 40 miles may put you in Raleigh. It could put you in areas that we don't want you to stay in,
Yeah.
keep it closer.
been an excellent discussion.
It has.
It's been so excellent that I can no longer remember whether we have a motion on the table.
Well, no, we were
did.
supposed
We
to
did not,
table
okay.
that.
That was what so what is the pleasure of the board?
Could I make a suggestion before?
Yes.
We've got enough, are we talking about housing assistance?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because the second bullet was going back
Was
to
going
Alec,
back.
right?
I'd suggest that also go back to be prepared and talk about it Tuesday night. We've got enough issues that have come up. I'd like some clarification.
Okay. But,
Okay.
I make that in form of a
we
motion.
have a motion. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor of booting this to Tuesday night with a request for additional clarification from the manager, signal so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign? That's great, but I want to thank each of you for this really thoughtful and important discussion. So with that, we're moving on to retention. The retention of both newly recruited law enforcement personnel and veteran officers requires a multifaceted approach. The City of Oxford must appropriately address all of the factors that are the causality of staff departure. Item 1, amend the existing longevity pay policy to change it from providing a set amount based upon time served to rewarding and recognizing years of service with the City of Oxford based upon percentages, and those are on the next page. 0.5% for 1 to 2 years, 1% for 2 to 5 years, 1.5% for 5 to 10 years, 2% for 10 to 14 years, 2.5% for 15 to 19 years, 3% for 20 to 25, and 3.5% for 25 plus years. Beginning January 1, 2023, longevity pay will be calculated effective the date of the employee's anniversary, will be issued with the first payroll in the month following the employee's anniversary date. So why don't we hit that one bullet, and I ask what is the pleasure of the board? Commissioner Gilreath.
I would like to modify this just a little bit, just to take out the 1 year but less than 2 years, because that's not longevity there, and plus they're getting all the other perks, the moving, the sign-on bonus, this, that, and the other. Otherwise, you still end up with some compression with the officer who's barely been there 2 years. That new officer will end up with far more salary and bonuses and extra money in the bank than your seasoned employees, or the one that has a little more experience and started at two but less than 5 years and keep everything else the same.
So you're making a motion that we approve this,
Delete-
but delete the
delete
first
the
line,
first
which is the
line.
1 to 2
Yes,
years?
ma'am.
Yes.
And are you proposing that you start the 2 to 5 at 1, keep that at 1%,
Yes, and keep
Okay.
everything else the way that it is.
okay?
And that sends the right message to all the other employees, so nobody within that first 2 years until they get to that second year, do they get longevity? I mean, longevity means you have to at
You
least
earned
spend a
it.
little time there, know your job, and be off probation possibly, and whatever else is tied into that job.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table from Commissioner Gilreath. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the new longevity pay scale with the deleting the 1 to 2 year line, and signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. And then we go to the next bullet, which is the Oxford Police Department should perform an organizational structure assessment and strongly consider adding additional rank levels based on experience, education, training, and ability. The City of Oxford should strongly consider adding the rank of police officer 2, as well as similar rank levels such as master sergeant. Doing so and establishing appropriate pay grades for these levels of rank will significantly aid in reducing pay compression issues, create a greater level of esprit de corps within the department, and allow for greater upward mobility for law enforcement personnel seeking to move forward in the Oxford Police Department. So this is kind of more of a, there's not a finite policy, it's just a recommendation from the manager that we formally determine that we need to work on this with the chief and the department and do this in the near future. Am I understanding that correctly, Mr. Thornton?
Yeah, right now, there's no finances associated with it, let me put it that way. You're not talking about money tonight until such time as you create new positions, and in creating new positions, they would be added to our cadre of positions that have duties and assignments and responsibilities and all of those things, similar to what we have now, added once we've looked into it. And that's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. And I think the police department and the city will benefit from that.
Okay, yes, I saw Commissioner Gilreath's pen first, and then we'll go Tovey, and then Commissioner Khan.
With regards to these positions, though, do we have a scale that talks about minimum, midpoint, maximum, and a range to keep everybody on course so that, you know, the officers will know exactly where they stand and where they hope to be at a certain period in their career, and then the commissioners have a framework versus dealing with this emotional drive and inflation and all these other things that has got us where we are today?
We certainly will, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that works for me, sir.
Mhm.
Okay,
I'd
yes,
like to
Commissioner
ask the chief,
Tovey.
would something like this help retention?
Oh, absolutely, it was a part of the package.
That-
that
that's- I thought so,
distributed
but-
last month.
Yeah.
It was a suggestion to create a career ladder.
Right.
For that upward
Great,
mobility.
I thought so, but great to hear that it will, so that's my question.
Actually, Mr. Thornton said at the last personnel committee meeting that some of the recommendations that were part of the career ladder, we can implement that through the professional pay development plan. But I think that's something that Melissa and I actually need to sit down and talk about.
Excellent. Yes, Commissioner Khan.
So John answered the first part of my question. Actually, the chief answered the first part of my question. It's all right. It's good. The second part is, can we establish a horizon of when we can expect to have your recommendations, so we can call committee meetings and so forth? Do you anticipate that's something you could have done by like first of the year, sooner, later? What just?
I think about the first year.
Okay. So I would motion this with the addition of like a January 1 sort of horizon timeline.
That we've got some kind
That
of
we,
recommendations.
that this
by
recommendation is
the-
back to us by January 1 of '23.
Okay.
Or sooner, if it's available sooner, but that would just help anchor it, if that's reasonable.
Okay. Any
One-
further? Oh, yes,
One last
Commissioner.
question. So when we issue the merit pay, they're also moving up the ladder as a result of merit pay on this same pay scale, Alan, that I was just asking about. So the merit pay will help move them along too, right? Or,
Yes, merit pay will help every employee if they're performing meritorious service.
so this is in conjunction too? I mean,
Mhm.
they're working in tandem to move along
That's
this
correct.
salary scale.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
And so that gives everybody direction.
Yes. And the goal is to tie these recommendations, as was just discussed, as I'm understanding, with the professional development plan that was so, that we're kind of blending it all in together, but to suit the particular needs of the police department at this time. Excellent. So, we have a motion from Commissioner Khan that we go forth with this with a timeline of having recommendations by January 1st. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of Commissioner Khan's motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. The next item is each current sworn full-time officer of the Oxford Police Department be provided an additional $3,000 in hazard pay Further, management recommends that all other full-time personnel of the city of Oxford be provided an additional $1,000 loyalty bonus for continuing to serve the city of Oxford and perform at a high level. Both the hazard pay and loyalty bonuses are to be paid in conjunction with the next pay period. And so we'll consider that item because the next one is a separate topic. Yes, ma'am, Mayor Pro Tem.
Do we not consider our fire department
Right.
hazardous?
Yes.
Is Mr. Thornton?
I think you consider working for the city hazardous. You know, I mean, that sounds flippant, but it's not.
No.
You know, I worry about somebody walking into my office, you know, deciding to unload on me at
Yeah.
times because they don't like their water bill or anything else as people are nowadays. So, again, we go back to that conversation we had at one, if not both, of the Personnel and Joint Public Safety Committee meetings about the ARP funding when it first came out and the definition of hazardous work and those employees they're defined to be performing hazard work or hazardous work. It depends on how you want to define it. Hazardous, yes, certainly. Fire department, then you start talking about a number of positions within the Public Works Department that, you know, are working in water and sewer and dealing with hazardous waste. It just depends on where you want to go with it. Again, the intent in the recommendations was to recognize the effort of the police department in continuing to provide public service to the city in spite of 30% vacancy rate within the department and all of the rather heartfelt comments that you got at your last board meeting about how they're not at home and all of those types of things, rewarding them for doing that. So, you know, if you want to do as recommended and you're having heartburn with hazard pay, call it something else. But I am not against, believe me, providing all of the employees something more if that is the choice of this board.
But I again, I go back to our fire department. Very seldom, unless it's a domestic or whatever, do our fire not respond in conjunction with our police. And I consider them just as critical as the police department. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Yes,
And I feel
Commissioner.
they should be tied in to the 3,000.
Okay. Commissioner Tovey.
Yes, I'd like to amend this to include the Oxford Fire Department as well. At this time, we can add anybody else and afterwards, but at this time, if we want to get this settled tonight, we can add in the fire department as well. I think there's no discrepancy as whether it's hazardous or not. You go into a burning building, it's pretty hazardous. So I'd like to include the fire department tonight, and then we can talk about other departments and other jobs after
Okay.
that.
I see Commissioner Gilreath and then Commissioner Khan.
The use of ARP money that was previously talked about many moons ago, was any money actually given to the police officers personally? Or how was funding given out with regards to, and what was the? What
The
did
only
we
money
do?
that has been given out is all employees received a $3,000
Okay.
bonus back in May.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, in the past, we talked about AARP using it for funding of something for the police department. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly what we were referring to, but that word has been, and it's been since I've been on the board. We,
In my notes from the personnel committee meeting back in October, we probably talked about the ARPA funds being used for the loyalty bonus.
Yeah.
That's what I have in my notes.
Well, but this was, well, when Chief Coley was here, and we were talking about maybe overtime or,
I think we're kind of getting a little confused in regards to that. I'll do my best to clarify it. We got a couple different tranches of funding. The first one that we received that came very quickly after the pandemic was around $293,000 roughly, top, right? And, you know, it was for immediate relief, and then they passed the larger package of ARPA funding, which was the American Relief Act, Plan Act, whatever the acronym is, and it was based upon every local entity's population. So we received 2 billion from that, and those funds, when they initially came out, you know, had a number of strings tied to them. They were very defined as to what you could use them for and all those types of things. And over the course of time, they have become much less restrictive to the point that the board, if you recall, took action, whatever it was, 2 or 3 months ago, and you took the standard.
exactly, we did.
Right?
Sir.
Remember that? Which
Yes.
meant that if you had received less than $10 million,
That's
that
right.
if you elected to take the standard, I forget the other word, and I apologize.
Allowance.
Yeah, standard allowance, that essentially you could use those funds for any governmental purpose. Be it payroll, be it buying new police vehicles, going out and building a bridge, if that's what you wanted to do. Paying either hazard or loyalty bonuses falls under the capability of that 2.4 million to do.
So my question is, have we, outside of the $3,000 that we've already paid all the employees, did the police officers get anything specific to them with any of that funding? Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, any further commentary from any members of the board at this time? So we have
Years ago.
Mayor Pro Tem making, or was it Commissioner Tovey?
Yeah, make an
Did you make
amendment
a
to this,
motion?
to amend this to include the fire department.
Okay, to include the fire department, but I think, was it Commissioner Khan, who was it that mentioned Public Works?
I was going to mention.
I did.
He-
Oh, you
he
did. I
but
apologize.
I was gonna speak after, Commissioner Gilrery, specific to, those positions within Public Works, the water and sewer folks, because I feel like they'd certainly qualify for the hazard. And I'm tacking that on to, the police and fire.
So you are you?
I am requesting, I am motioning that we include those positions within Public Works, the fire department and the police department for the hazard pay. Or substitute motion.
Right,
rather.
so unless Commissioner Tovey wants to amend his motion to include that, or do you want to keep your motion as is for the fire department, and Commissioner Khan, you're making a substitute motion?
As long as the fire department are involved, then I'll go along with that.
So you'll go with adding Public Works?
Yeah, I'll go along with that, yeah.
Okay, so we have an amended motion that includes Public Works, the fire department, and the police department.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any, yes, sir?
Before you take that vote, can I ask for a point of clarification regarding Public Works? Public Works has folks that work within the street department. They're not doing water and sewer work necessarily per se as what they do on a daily basis. So are we including every employee in Public
No.
Works? Or are we doing those that actually perform as defined by ARPA hazard?
As defined.
As defined.
I mean,
yeah.
the Public Works Director would have to, he would have a list of the folks that actually do that hazardous work. Or Amy got something?
I was just going to ask about the wastewater treatment.
I got that on my list, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, wastewater treatment plant.
Yep.
I'd already written that down.
thinking about it, but recreation, that leaves only 2 departments.
See where this goes, which is
exactly.
why you got the recommendation you got.
It does.
But
It
hazards
gets
are
messy.
hazards, so
Well, there's hazards and hazards.
I mean, I don't know where we're gonna come down with what's hazardous pay and who qualifies under that. My question has more to do with, do we have any, conditions relative to receiving the $3,000? Because I would hate for things like, as soon as we give the $3,000 hazardous pay, an officer deciding that they want to go to another department within a week or two. It just seems to me that, we're just throwing money at the employees without any conditions for receiving that. Because I hear all the time there are officers right on the edge of leaving the department. And it just put a bad taste in my mouth if we chuck out these checks and then the officer within a week or so decides they want to go to another department. I mean, I don't know. I think we're going a bit far.
Would it help us, though, if we tied this into part of their longevity? I mean, after a certain period, they get, the hazard pay. I mean, versus, getting it just because they're in the position and only been in there for a short period.
What I think part of at least when this discussion was originally coming up, was there was a desire to
Recognize and reward.
thank you, recognize and reward officers that are here separately from the opportunity for a hiring bonus. Those folks that have been sticking it out and not making it contingent on you're gonna stay this much longer for this or that. I think that was the intent.
That is the intent.
And pending while we're doing a salary study, so that whole discussion of pay for across the departments in the city can be addressed when the salary study comes in. But in the meantime, there's an opportunity to say, we appreciate what you've done.
Was
Yes.
this supposed to be paid in one check, or was it supposed to be paid on a monthly basis?
One check.
It needs to be impactful.
Well,
Okay, we have I could just be quiet for a moment while everybody ponders all of the discussion.
Yeah. In a minute.
Commissioner,
Where are
So
we?
is my clarification, so John has, at this point, to recap, has amended his motion to incorporate my suggestion. Alan then asked for clarification, and we suggested, I think we were about to suggest that it be defined what the term hazardous as is defined by, was it the ARPA?
The feds,
The feds give that criteria, and then the department heads can work within that criteria to know specifically who qualifies for said hazard pay
and who doesn't?
and who does not. And then we remembered that the water treatment plant is outside of Public Works and falls under engineering. So, that being said, I will ask for an amendment to the amendment of the original motion so that those employees can also be included for eligibility for the hazard pay.
What, wastewater treatment plant, or just, or?
It would just be the wastewater treatment plant are you hiding anything else over there, anybody? Well, I don't think so. I think it would just be the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, I'd already had that on my
is that
list.
considered hazardous work?
It can be.
In terms of the Coronavirus Relief Act, yes, those are the only terms that are definitions that we have from the feds currently to determine what is hazardous and what is not. Because we go back to trying to connect this to the ARPA funds, and it's not necessarily the ARPA funds that you utilize to pay this. So, you know, again, if we're hung up on hazard and hazardous, then maybe we want to look at it in a different way and call everything a loyalty bonus and determine whose loyalty we most. No, that doesn't sound right either. But the mayor captured the intent of management in developing this and getting this to you. It was to address, you know, the efforts of the police department in dealing with the critical shortage that they've been dealing with for the extended period of time and the yeoman's work that they put in. I'm not saying that anyone that works for the city of Oxford is not deserving of anything. It's a special circumstance, and that's what we're addressing. That's what all of this is really addressing, are special circumstances because of either the lack of a talent pool that is out there or whatever else. We're trying to make sure that critical services for the city of Oxford have enough and appropriate staffing to provide them. That's really the bottom line in all of this. And that was the intent behind it. And if we get hung up on hazardous, then I don't know, that may warrant some additional conversation, but if you want to define hazardous, you're gonna have to use those definitions provided by the federal government when they gave out the first tranche of ARPA funding.
I will say with respect to the water treatment plant, in terms of hazardous, and this is just my vision having visited, you know, one, it's short staffed, they don't have a QA tech who is doing the, you know, the sampling and the things of that nature so we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is my interpretation of it, we have general employees out there doing multiple job types that they were not necessarily originally qualified to do, or that's not what they were, so there is an inherent hazard with the things they're doing. They're dealing with human waste, making sure that they are meeting the standards and making sure that the plant is taking the influx of water during storms and not backing up into our homes. So that, and how many employees do we have out there? 5?
5 employees.
Yeah.
There is a vacancy for the lab technician, and we did have one just come back from maternity leave. They went up, so we're down to 3 for a period.
Commissioner Bullock, thank you.
I think it would be advisable to come up with a list of qualified positions before we vote on this.
Okay, so, Commissioner Lumpkin.
Can we vote on the police department and fire department tonight?
Yeah.
And then come up with a list with the other ones so we can discuss that later?
Mhm.
Okay, so you are making
Right.
a substitute
on it.
motion to vote on the police and fire department tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Lumpkins, to do hazard pay for police and fire?
And I do like about making a list for those.
Any further discussion on Commissioner Lumpkin's substitute motion over, because I have to go the most recent first, that I can go through them all
I get it,
depending
I get
on
it,
what
I get it, I know.
passes. Commissioner
Unless all the
Gilbert.
motions are withdrawn and one motion is made.
Right.
The $3,000 that we're talking about, the future funding of this is gonna come from where?
I would ask what you're calling future funding.
Well, new positions, you know, new hires, I mean, because.
This is only being done one time for those that exist currently and have been here.
So it's not built into their, okay,
No.
good then. I mean, I'm thinking future firemen and police officers at some point will be entitled to. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Piggyback, I am in agreement with Commissioner Lumpkin, but look at future, look at all our other employments
Yeah,
later
absolutely.
on. Because we got loyalty
Right.
in other departments too,
Right.
so.
But that's why we
And
enhance
and on this vote, can we also agree on the loyalty pay for other employees?
That's next.
Well,
No, that,
Part.
it's part of it was 3,000 hazard for
Mhm.
PD, 1,000
Loyal.
for loyalty for everyone. Then there was excuse me?
Go ahead.
And then there was a discussion to add the fire department, came
That's
from
fine.
you, and concurrence by Commissioner Tovey, then discussion about public works, then discussion about wastewater treatment plant, and then Commissioner Bullock said we need a list, because it is true that the term of hazard is confusing. Officers on the street at the police department are in a different level of exposure than somebody at the front desk. So that happens in all departments. And then Commissioner Lumpkin said, motion to please consider police and fire now. And that's where we.
That was my original motion.
Correct.
That was my
Bridges.
original motion.
And then Commissioner Bridges,
added the loyalty.
Because it's in here. I mean,
correct.
Because it's in there.
Okay, so we are talking, Commissioner Lumpkins, did your discussion about hazard for police and fire also include the $1,000 loyalty for everyone else?
No, because we hadn't gotten to that bullet point yet, but, so we might have to table the,
oh, I thought it was
$1,000.
part of the bullet.
I thought it was part of the bullet.
sorry, it's another paragraph that we ain't got to, but
If I could, if you are desirous of providing that, you can always do that, and adding the caveat, if other positions are determined to be hazardous,
Right,
that they would have an
Okay.
increase
yeah,
following $2,000.
okay.
we do
That
that.
answers my concern then.
And that way I don't get shot tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
So, yes, and I'll,
Can we clarify, say that one more time for the whole class? Because that's my concern. So, $1,000 bonus, and you have the ability to determine who thus qualifies for hazard, so you can tackle
We
the
will bring
2,000.
that
Bring
list
that up
of
in the
those
future,
that
yeah.
meet the hazard or hazardous duty back to the board
yeah,
at a later date, which is what
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem
Can we have it
mentioned.
Tuesday?
And if you wish to add those, you can add them, and then you're just paying another $2,000.
yeah. Let's just do the police and the fire department tonight, and then we can do the others on Tuesday, hopefully.
Well,
when we got a
that
list.
was gonna be my question is it possible to bring, and that's per Commissioner Bullock's request also, to bring that list for consideration, or do you need more time?
That'd probably be the easiest request you've made.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner Gilreath, I believe you, I saw your pen.
I am concerned that we've given $3,000 for loyalty and bonus and the job that we've done, and we keep adding to it. I mean, at what point do we say that we budgeted more than what we could possibly afford during this review cycle? And what will our liabilities look like next year when employees don't get the same amount of monies that they've gotten this year? I mean, because this has been an extraordinary amount of money given, earned, given to the employees from this board. And we have to also consider that. And are we bonding ourselves in the future for unrealistic expectations and nobody wanting to work for us because we had green pastures in 2022 and 2023? We may not be as generous because, and then heaven forbid, when the ARCA money really is gone, which is what, 2026, you know, we'll be back to reality and would have spent it all by then. I mean, so I just want us to keep those things in mind. I understand what we're trying to accomplish here, but I thought we also accomplished that by the bonus of $3,000, the 4% pay increase, and then we just amended the longevity, and that longevity scale is a major benefit, and everybody will receive that, and it will be equitable across the line to everybody when they meet that minimum criteria, i.e., I've been on this job for this period of time, therefore I get this. I mean, so I just want us to quit, not suggesting quit throwing money at something, but we have to logically think it through longer than just appeasing people at the employees for this moment in time. I mean, yes, we're in inflationary time periods, but what happens when the inflation goes down? You know, what happens when after this election, I mean, maybe the economy will do this number and we'll all be, you know, wealthy because we make 10 cents now. I mean, so, yeah, this is, I think we've done an extraordinary job. I really do. But we can't continue at this pace, and we can't keep sending the signal that we're willing to continue at this pace.
Okay, I think the only additional comment I have to that is I do believe and would hope that all the employees understand that with respect to this particular bonus money, whatever name it has, it is in response to a critical situation. The longer, you know, longevity is a long-term response that will be part of the budget. And once the pay study comes back, any actions that are taken as a consequence of that would be a long-term impact on the budget that I would desperately hope that employees would understand that this has been an unusual year.
It has.
And that bonuses are finite versus
Infinite.
yes, continuous and sustaining. With that,
With that,
the motion,
is
motion,
the motion is
Lumpkin.
Commissioner Lumpkin's motion to approve 3,000 for police and fire. Originally you weren't on the 1,000, but
We
there's,
can add that, yes.
and the 1,000 for everyone else, with an instruction to the manager to come back to the board with additional recommendations for staff that would fit under the hazardous definition and then could be adjusted.
Finance.
Yes, I would like to, I saw Mr. Ung's hand. Yes, sir.
So all this takes place tonight using ARPA money, correct?
That was my understanding, but that's.
So the board has to also accept that we need to transfer that into the current budget.
okay.
Mr. Thornton, do you have a comment?
I'm not gonna sit here in open session and openly disagree with the finance director, but I think we might wanna check that and make sure you taking the, standard allowance basically places that money at your availability.
Yeah.
But we'll double check that.
And-
But you also have, significant balances elsewhere.
That's
Your
right.
last statement showed that you had availability of $25.5 million in your balances,
Mm-hmm.
so.
So would it be appropriate to say that if there is a budget amendment that needs to be made, that could be
We will
included
prepare
in
that
the
and have it
agenda
ready.
for Tuesday. Does
Mhm.
that address your concern, sir? And did I see, was it Commissioner Khan? Yes.
Yes, to clarify, we'll have those recommendations back for those other positions on Tuesday, or is that a later date? Because my
Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. So we are clear that it is, okay, perfect. That's it.
So, am I ready to
Yes.
call? All in favor of the motion to include the fire department and the police department under the rubric of hazard pay? Right at this moment, $1,000 for remaining employees, with a list to come from the manager for others that might fit under the umbrella of hazard pay, duty, however you want to say it, to come on Tuesday, and with any appropriately associated budget amendments to be added to the agenda on Tuesday night.
Right.
Signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. That motion carries.
That was a long chat.
And again, I want to thank each of you.
We still have,
Yes,
You're not done
no, I
yet.
know.
okay.
I just think it's important when we have long discussions like this to let you know how I appreciate it in the excellent discourse. Finally, management strongly recommends that an internal review of the Oxford.
Mayor, but before we call it finally, I noticed that, my 3-page memorandum recommended a salary study be performed.
Yes, I
This
did
does
not.
have that in there, so before you go finally, and do the last one, let's talk salary study.
Okay.
and do
I
that.
thought we had given you a go
Yeah,
forth
that's
at the
exactly
last
what I'm
meeting.
waiting for, is the go forth, and if the board provides it, we are ready to
I was
call
on
and
the
make the
same
phone call and
impression.
start.
That was given in
Personnel.
Personnel.
Yeah.
It was a
Again.
consensus.
Yeah.
Everything was a consensus at the
Right.
last meeting,
Yeah.
in the
Change
joint
the
meeting. You had board members who were not present. This is where we vote.
Right.
Okay, fine. So the manager proposes that we institute a salary study, and that would be in-depth and citywide, so that we address all issues of equity or inequity across the board. And do you have further discussion to add to that, or explanation?
I do not. We look forward to the results.
So move.
Do we have a motion by Commissioner Bullock? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to do a salary study that is citywide, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Thornton.
Thank you.
And now, finally, management strongly recommends that an internal review of the Oxford Police Department be performed by a qualified outside party with the objective of providing the city of Oxford with a full report of findings, conveying any and all factors that are cause of recruitment and retention issues that challenge the Oxford Police Department. And you have support information in that, which is a staff report. I think that actually refers to everything we just discussed. I apologize. So what is the desire of the board?
Motion.
Pleasure of the board. Yes, by motion by Commissioner Bridges to move forward on an internal review of the PD to look at issues of recruitment. Any discussion?
I just have, do we know what entity is doing this? We say just outside entity, do we have something in mind? I'm just kind of curious what that process looks like.
I visualize the city utilizing the services of Phil Dixon to perform that for us. He's very well versed in that, and has decades of experience and is available to do it, and will do so at a very, very reasonable price.
Done.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Now we move forward to setting the agenda for Tuesday night. Does anybody need a pause for 5 minutes to get up and move, or are we good
I
to?
would love to go to the bathroom.
Me too.
Okay, then we are going to pause for 5 minutes or so. I'm like, I told you the other week because I bought it that myself. I bring all the drink.
We have to get water.
You should bring your own
So
drink.
nice and warm.
Okay.
Okay, I need
Oh,
to stand.
my own Mountain Dew. Huh?
I said, I paid for my own Mountain Dew.
Oh, John, I wish I had one. Yeah, Jackie.
Yep.
Since
Oh,
football
what a
season.
good idea. I didn't know we had these. I need one of those and one of them. Actually, I'm like, no, I'm gonna get one of these.
Appalachian laws.
I love Smarties.
Pirates had a bye week, so that was good.
That was a good old take 'em out behind the barn.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
got their butt kicked.
They didn't
Butt
play.
kick.
They didn't show up.
Who's actually, he's done exactly this kind of thing with huge companies.
I mean, that was an old fashioned one.
That's called taking it to the woodshed. That's what they refer to that as.
I got to go to see arguments today at the Supreme Court in DC today.
Oh, did you?
It was awesome.
What were they doing today?
They had 2 cases on the docket. It was kind of like an administrative law kind of deal, constitutional claim. So a lot of it was over my head. I didn't read any of the briefs or anything, but I kind of had an idea. I read some of the summary before I went, but it was
Did you
good.
get sworn in?
I did.
Yeah, that's what, other people go up there and do that.
It was a good experience. I just did it. I had an opportunity and I said, why not?
You get a bunch of people in your school go.
Doing all right?
Yeah, I Campbell there.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5
Doing good, how about yourself?
Okay.
in all the years.
So you'll be glad to get home this evening. It's a long day.
Me too.
Yeah, same here.
They made us get here at 7:45 and the argument just went to I don't know why,
Well, they
but.
had to check everybody out.
Yeah, security, they just ring the room.
Yeah. Did you find out who the leaker was?
They didn't.
They didn't rule on Trump's Mar-a-Lago documents or anything like that? Nothing exciting?
Somebody mad at the SEC.
The mundane, huh?
You like to
It was like.
I was trying to decide who to get that.
That's just very interesting. I didn't realize they asked that many questions. God, apparently now they stop the time when they ask the questions. So the argument lasted 2 hours. I bet each one of them asked about 4 or 5 questions.
Is it? That's unusual. That's really just started, because they went there for years where, I think Clarence Thomas never asked questions.
He asked the first one.
Good discussion.
Yeah, he just
He's
never.
talking.
You and me both.
Yeah.
We're slaughtered, man.
Well, I think that,
Lifted the meeting, we would've been out here at 6.
I think the Solicitor General.
Oh, yeah,
Carolina
yeah.
had to talk
That's how
about
they
that. Argue about
Thought she was going to.
No, I didn't follow it. It's just
the
big deal.
diversity policy of North Carolina and Harvard.
So I couldn't catch.
She has to do the adding, she's the one that lays it with it. So she's the one
That's
that
a,
and she's gonna go.
that would be a tough group.
I got a big coat downstairs, you want it?
They're already, they're 63.
Give me your jacket.
Flying west.
Give me your jacket.
Yeah, it's not bad going out.
No, I'm just kidding, man.
You can pay for it.
Coming back's a
I've
killer.
got a light coat downstairs.
No,
Worst
I
time on
wouldn't
that,
do
we
that.
had scheduled to
We-
go out.
we're not gonna be here that much longer
I
now.
don't remember who it was.
I'ma tell her.
Look,
Then my daughter
But
Qualified to run a half marathon, which will then have.
The building itself.
Oh,
We always
yeah.
change our ticket, I realize that.
Yeah, I,
Turn around, put a chicken in the
I've
Sit there, message.
it would lead me to go to the Supreme Court to argue
I said,
anything.
please don't hurt
Unless it's hard.
Yeah, I've had a chance to go up there. I
know it.
law school
I
fast.
was basically in position, as I understood it, to explain
The first 10 years.
What, tonight?
after we were out, and I could have gotten
I said,
moved.
go,
And, you know,
I thought we were going this way, but now.
after a while.
For a minute, I was following the train, and then I thought, I jumped on the train.
It makes you wonder why sometimes.
enough time, to be honest, I need it to be done by now.
I thought I was on the train. and then I got off. But Ron, I'm gonna call you and talk about that ride to Washington.
Yeah.
I just, one of my.
This is hitting the spot here.
My niece is there.
I just wanna ride.
Let's.
And I don't wanna go.
If everybody's in the room, let's
I had,
continue.
I had already made.
Yep, everybody's back.
Yeah, they're here. They're
Child
checking
support.
us out.
Commissioners,
hit the gavel, they win.
yo, my colleagues,
Okay.
back to your place, sir. Sir's up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No, it just, I sensed we all needed to move a little bit, but let's see if we can go home to families and
Yes.
friends.
I remember.
I don't drink.
No. Okay,
Wrap up.
Oh, boy.
now,
We don't read anything.
so, here we are, opening call to order stuff, normal. Delegations, we are going to add into the delegations that we are going to celebrate Officer Caitlin Elliott, is that correct? Chief, who was awarded the Officer of the Year Award at the Crime Stoppers banquet, which I think was a week and a half ago, maybe close to 2 weeks ago now. We are going to acknowledge Morgan Run Employee of the Month, Maya Wilson, congratulations. Arbor Day proclamation. Ms. Hart, are we doing any kind of tree planting in celebration of the city's Arbor Day this year? Probably not. Is there a particular reason that we are not?
Well, we have definitely plant all the trees there, so we can try to find some that we've gotten another area.
Okay. I do have some thoughts because we were supposed to, when we took down some trees with Duke Power at locations, when we talked to those homeowners adjacent to those trees, we did say we would replant, and that has not happened, so I put that forth as worth thinking about, that we can make good on the promise to replace those trees. I think it would end. And finance discussion by Hak
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna be on a, out-of-town conference.
okay,
So this.
so we'll delete that.
Yeah, Sunday to Tuesday night, probably coming back on Wednesday.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And I actually have a question about whether there would be an interest in, rather than always keeping it on finance, that maybe we do, we rotate through other departments to do a departmental update, so maybe once a quarter it's finance, and then we hear a short little, this is what's happening with us that we've been working on. Is there interest in
Yes,
hearing
absolutely.
from other departments that way,
Absolutely.
so we
Yes.
can,
And the public would like it as well.
yeah?
Yep.
Would that,
Absolutely.
I agree.
I was looking at our finance committee chair because I know that,
Do you
so, is there,
I'm giving my time to my colleagues.
okay? So, without, Mr. Thornton, what I would say is if there's somebody who's interested to say, yeah, I'll take 5 minutes and come forth on Tuesday night, we'd love to have them, and if nobody wants to have that added to their plate right now, I think the board would understand.
Yeah.
Can that extend to like,
Bless you.
I mean, you guys already know it happens downtown, but like, you know, we have Seth who's on the airport board, we have the, you know, TAR-CAR Regional Council, if there's things there, and we don't have a director that's, can we have any updates that might be relevant to those organizations that we are, have sitting members on?
So what,
We
we
used to
actually
do that.
used to have that. What I was having in mind with my proposal was very specifically city
Okay,
department.
okay.
So if somebody wants to come and speak from Public Works or Recreation or whatever. But we did used to have a section
did.
of the agenda that was assigned to input from board members to give updates from those committees that they are assigned to that are, so exactly as you say, Airport Authority for Commissioner Lumpkins, or CARTAR Public Works, or, you know, DOEDC as you are, yes. So that would be, if the board is interested in having that, with a, you know, a quick update, it could either be rotating or however you like it. That's up to the board.
Commissioner Kern made the motion to do away with those
Reports.
reports
Correct.
because it made our meetings
Longer.
longer.
I remember that.
I distinctly remember that.
I'd be interested in making these things any longer. I love hanging out with you guys, but I would still occasionally like to get some reports on what happens on those other boards and committees, because it's, you know,
I think it would be nice if say next month you would let Cindy or whoever know that you would like to be on the, you know, be added on.
Sure.
Because you would like to have a report from DODC, you know, downtown economic development. Teresa feel like there's something that the public needs to know with the Greenway. You know, let Cindy know, but not require each committee to have a
Right.
report each month.
sure,
Right.
that makes sense.
Right, or could we just, instead of having our comments that we have at the end of the meeting, share some of this at that point, if you have something that you want to share?
That's,
I
What
mean,
very wise.
that would be
Timely.
probably more appropriate use of our time.
absolutely. I mean, it's whatever, this is your meeting, so it's however you would like to do that.
I like it when there's comments at the end and you talk about whatever your committee is for a hot second or 2 seconds.
And you, right, does that
Yeah, that
address
satisfies me, yeah,
that
I
for
was
you,
just,
Commissioner Khan?
absolutely.
And if at any time, certainly, if at any time you think you want, because a placeholder on the agenda for, you know, brief committee updates, it can be whoever wants to, but why don't we start that way with
Yeah.
Commissioner Gilreath saying, if you've got something to report from the committee that you have included, that doesn't mean you don't have the right to make any other comments, but just to include it there at the end. Does that work?
Yeah.
And then we're good with the manager, if there's anybody on your staff that would like to step into Mr. Arm's shoes and do a brief update on their department. I don't think there are any rules on this, it's just, and if nobody
Well,
does.
I'll volunteer someone Wednesday morning.
Well, if they don't, I mean, it's not meant to be a pressure point. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, I like what Hawk has done with the finances and made us, you know, more studious and paying attention and having a better understanding. So I think it should be spread among all the departments to have an opportunity to enlighten us a little bit more and the community a little bit more. And I mean, and it could be as brief as what Hawk and the example that he has set with for us, that other people just emulate that, and we're not talking anything in depth, but better understanding. I mean, something as simple right now on my mind is major stormwater type stuff. I just sat and watched some broadcast from Durham, a little cartoon thing, and I thought, oh, I like the way they did that. I mean, it was really, really cute, and it was very, very informative. I mean, so it will be a learning experience for everybody in the community as well as the board.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, thank you. So moving forward, public hearing to receive citizen input on a request regarding conditional rezoning. Is it conditional rezoning or is it creating a conditional use district? What is the correct terminology, Ms. Thornton? Because I know you've mentioned this before. you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Well, you do have conditional use zoning capability in your UDO.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that that's what this is. I continue to have concerns in regards to the developer telling you what conditions he'll develop under.
Yeah.
Those are conditions that are to be established by the city, not the developer. And, you know, here, we've got another one again, talking about the condition of the developer wants to do this. And I think it was mentioned last time that, if they want to develop, 3.25 dwelling units per acre, then why could they not request, CUGR5
That's right, that's what I
rather
brought
than
that
10?
up.
Correct.
They didn't, they
Do we
asked
know?
for 10.
Don't it? Can't answer that question.
No, that was weird.
I've asked it, but, we're back here on the agenda again with the same thing.
Ms. Hart, do we know why they're
Why did they do
requesting
that?
conditional use for a GR10 rather than GR5, since 3.25 an acre fits in under GR5?
I think it's because of smaller lot sizes.
So the smaller lot sizes that they want are not possible under a GR5.
Apparently not.
Apparently.
And there's a problem.
She said apparently not, so I guess they want
I'll check on that.
a GR10 because in a GR10, you are allowed smaller lot sizes for single-family homes, and that's what they're trying to get. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So study your materials, colleagues,
Right.
which we were emailed a bunch for, and you will have hard copy maps in your, Cindy
You got
went ahead
that.
and did it for everybody.
Cindy did
Because
it.
I wanted mine sooner. Okay, so everybody's got the support information tonight. Thank you very much, Cindy, and study it, and so you can be ready. And if you have questions, ask them of the manager and Ms. Hart. Okay, so item A is to hold the public hearing, B is to approve the request, and, there we go, and that's gone through the planning board review. Is there further questions on this item at this time?
I think there will be a lot of members of the public here for that one because my phone hasn't stopped.
Okay. Okay, then we move to item 5, city business, and A, consider adopting a resolution for and offer an acceptance of the state loan for project number WIF 2019, expand the Carr Lake Regional Water System Treatment Plant. Does anybody have any questions on this item?
No.
You're just excited, okay? Item B, considered adopting an ordinance to allow murals in the city of Oxford and the ETJ. Does anybody have any questions on this item?
Got one.
And I am trying, I had a couple, but, here it is. I think what I'll do is I'll bring them up with the manager because I think they're related to what was in my notes at the meeting, and I'll bring them up that way, and if I need to send something out, I will. Item C, consider approving a proposal for Corbett Contracting to replace and repair the Elmwood Cemetery storm drain. Corbett Contracting has proposed to replace and repair the Elmwood Cemetery storm drain for the amount of $228,300, and you have support information in attachment 5C. Does anybody have any questions on this item at this time? Okay. And lastly is the consent agenda. Any questions? And then we have, do we need water,
Do we need to
Commissioner?
remove A?
Remove A.
Oh, well, he's gonna,
Hey,
we'll
we gonna
have the
accept it.
finance report. He's just not gonna, he can still have the finance report ready for us.
We'll
We
have
just
it on
won't have the
paper.
discussion on it.
Yeah.
Good,
If I
okay?
get someone successfully voluntold, you'll have another department that's going to be in its place.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see.
See, like that word voluntold.
Don't chortle too much. Okay, and then we have Thanksgiving food drive has started going through to November 22nd. Do we have identified, it looks like Alyssa has gone, so do we know where the food is going?
Yes, it's going to, the same people we worked with last month. No, what's on the back of that? There's
The
a,
food
there's a
drive.
flyer back
I
there.
think it's ACIM, isn't it?
No, it's going to, I can't remember the name of them.
It's,
I
you're
would
not-
have if you hadn't asked.
I'm with you,
It
girl.
doesn't say. The help center.
They help some.
Help
The
Center.
help
Okay.
center,
Industry drive, safety report.
okay? And employee appreciation lunch from 12 to 2 on Friday, November 18th.
Yep.
And Thanksgiving holiday, the 24th and 25th. Is there anything else for
One
good of
item.
the people? Oh, yes, sir?
One more there as far as a reminder, Veterans Day is
Veterans Day.
observed on Friday, so our offices will be closed this
Okay.
Friday.
And am I correct, Commissioner Bullock, that you said that the American Legion here in Oxford will not be doing anything this year?
That's
but
correct.
there will be a celebration ceremony at the Butner Sports Arena in Butner that everybody has been invited to. And am I remembering that's at 11? Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Only thing I would add, a reminder, December 3rd, there is the Oxford Gala benefiting this year's charity is the Hope House.
Yeah.
And it'll be held at the Orpheum. So opportunity to get dressed up. I believe if I understood the festivities for the evening, the jazz band from Webb will be the entertainment for the night. So
Okay. Lovely.
expecting about 125 lovely folks.
That's
Yeah,
excellent.
and tickets are on sale at the Hub.
Cost.
It's $100 a head. If you're going to be my date this year, you let me know so we can coordinate. Stood me up last year, Mayor Pro Tem. So you know.
You all heard him ask me out, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I heard it.
Yeah.
You
so
all
that-
heard it.
That's how he pays.
So that means I get all dolled up and you pay.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go. Okay. Since we're down at that end, is there anything else that you have to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner Gilrey.
No.
Commissioner Tovey.
Just like an update on Alan's replacement, if we can get one by next week.
Or I think, are we planning a personnel committee meeting?
I think those conversations are ongoing, right?
Yes. We'll let you know.
So I think that's the process, okay? Great. I'm just writing a note, bear with me. Commissioner Bridges, anything
Yeah,
you
that
would
was
like
my
to add?
question also. How we're
Okay.
coming along with placing Mr. Thornton.
We got a meeting next week, you say? We have a meeting next week?
Not scheduled yet.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
She said we're still accepting applications until the 16th.
Oh, good.
excellent. And I will say, when, the city of Creedmoor had gone through a search process and then made the decision to hire their acting manager as the manager, so I did ask the mayor to send us any names of anybody that they felt would, had floated to the top. So we'll double check and see if they are still, as soon as I get that. I hope to get that information tomorrow.
And to my brokenheartedness, I found out yesterday that the city of Oxford is not the only municipality in search
No.
for a city manager.
That's
They
what I
are in
heard.
great demand.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to, here we go again.
Yep. I heard the
Bite
same.
another bullet.
I heard the same. Yep.
I would like to extend to Commissioner Ron and all the veterans that participated in the parade yesterday, and all those spectators or the people that came out to wave at us. We do appreciate it. And the mayor for giving us a ride.
Yes.
Yeah, that worked out.
Yes,
That was great. And I want to say also, and thanks, and to our new veteran service officers who stepped in, you know, during a tremendous time of grief for Alyssa, who was not able to continue coordinating it, and those guys were great. And so it was really nice to have them. And yes, thanks to our vets.
And to piggyback on that, let us not forget Alyssa and her mother
Yes. Yes.
in rebuilding their
Absolutely.
lives.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Bowe?
Commissioner Ron,
I'm good, thank you.
okay.
You are.
And Commissioner Lumpkins,
Nothing.
Mr. Thornton,
Nothing further, no ma'am.
okay. Mr. Burnett,
No, ma'am.
okay, and I just, again, we had an awful lot of discussion tonight, but it was thoughtful and respectful and very gratifying from my perspective, and I just want to thank each of you for taking the time to be thinking about these issues. And to all of you that I know are tired and ready to go home, thank you for your service to the city of Oxford, and be safe on the road tonight. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion, I know we all agree.
Thank you, my insurance, and my birthday will be the next year after.
Oh, is this
When was your birthday?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
November's a good month.
It is, it's my
No, it
brother-in-law's
was a
birthday.
My son's one yesterday.
Yours is the 20th?
I do.
Yours is the 21st.
I'm looking forward to my 75th.
Take care.
See you, thank you, John, it's good to see you, moving better and better.
Getting better and better.
I didn't know it was your birthday.